Hello, everyone. This is the Revolutionary Think Tank podcast. If this is your first time here, this is a podcast about political commentary, a sprinkling of philosophy, organizing psychology, and revolutionary thinking. My name is 4AS, and this is my co-host, Mr. E. So, Mr. E, how are you going today?
I am very well, 4AS. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm going pretty well. And of course, we have our other co-host. We have our resident AI explorer, Kareem the Dream. How are you going today, mate?
Good. I'm psyched up for this conversation today, as I've been saying the whole time. So we're finally here. I'm gonna
Look,
ramble a
yes,
fair bit on this one.
yes, because today's topic is technocracy and civilizational leap potential. So, hey, as per usual, why don't we start off with a definition of what technocracy is? Boys, would you like me to go ahead and start with the definition? Because I've got one right handy, unless somebody
Please.
wants to take a crack.
I might take a quick crack at it, and then I'll get you to clean up my definition.
Hey, let's do it. Kareem, what is technocracy?
To me, like my basic understanding of it is it's like a meritocracy, but related to the people that know how to use technology. So, in essence, the people that are better at using technology are going to find themselves in more privileged positions within society, or if they're the creators of technology or they have that technical skill set, then essentially they're going to be seen as the ones with the most merit, and theoretically rise to the top of the. I don't want to say scrap heap. Why did that word come up for me?
Well,
But,
yeah,
um, but, but yeah,
what
they're
did
going to
you
be seen as
gravitate toward?
so, humanity is scrap heap. Sorry.
Well, you've heard it right here, ladies and gentlemen. Kareem thinks that
Oh,
humanity
really?
is a screen. But like, no, that pretty much broadly was kind of encompassing the definition that I kind of got off the net. So it says that technocracy is a concept in political theory that refers to a system of governance in which decision makers are selected based on their expertise in a given area, specifically scientific, technical, or economic knowledge. The term derives from the Greek word techne, skill, and kratos, power of rule, essentially meaning rule by experts. In a technocratic system, authority is vested not in elected representatives or political leaders, but in individuals who possess specialized knowledge and skills. These experts are believed to be better equipped to make rational, evidence-based decisions, especially in complex domains such as environmental policy, infrastructure, healthcare, and economic planning. Technocracy is often contrasted with democracy, where leaders are chosen through a popular vote, regardless of their technical qualifications. While democratic systems prioritize representation and public will, technocracies emphasize efficiency, expertise, and rationality. Later, the definition kind of goes into meritocracies that you were kind of saying, Kareem. But like that's kind of the broad definition.
Yeah,
So obviously, it's the term that we get, technocratic societies or structures.
and 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 look, it makes sense on one level in that we're entering an era where the pace of change is so rapid, and the introduction of new technologies that we're getting access to, and the changes that we're seeing necessitate leadership by people who are actually familiar with the technologies, who are familiar with the consequences of the technologies, the path ahead, what development looks like, and what the impact of these things is ultimately going to be on humanity. So, as much as I'm a supporter of democracy and elected representatives and everything like that, at the end of the day, if we've got people in power who don't fully understand what we're dealing with, then it's likely we're going to experience some road bumps and some hurdles in the process, which could, given the pace of change, like we don't really have the time to screw around. Now, if democratically elected representatives were, I guess, willing to upskill, for want of a better term, or get the necessary education to be able to navigate these difficult terrains, I'm all for that. And I'm not suggesting they should be sidelined in any way, um, but I'm still firmly of the belief that we want people in leadership positions who do at the minimum have the technical expertise to be able to help us navigate these domains. So
Yeah, like the one thing I will say is my number one issue with maybe with technocracy and the kind of the ideas that are surrounding it is an idea that we've kind of talked about previously, right? And it's accountability. And the first thing that kind of comes to my mind is, say, leaders, say the head of the Reserve Bank of Australia, or somebody that is on the board of that kind of institution. Now, I would say that sort of institution is incredibly technocratic. You know, you've probably got somebody who went to Harvard or probably went to Cambridge and probably got there via, the uh, meritocratic system of like, oh, well, the board or the people that put them in that position, they thought that they were the best expert for the job. But if you actually look through political history, there also is like it's that sort of technocratic expertise. It doesn't take into consideration that, I guess the contradiction of in the way of trying to depoliticize a system, it kind of falls into being political anyway. Because look, I'm sure this. I'm happy to kind of fact check this, but I have seen a very strong pattern of, you know, uh, when ScoMo was in power, when Scott Morrison was in power, the RBA and a lot of the people that were found out later to be liberal donors or being very very much having close ties to the Liberal Party, holding back rate rises, like interest rate rises, because they knew it would make their mates look bad, or the converse of that, where as soon as a party that wasn't they weren't personally aligned with, they would immediately put in an interest rate rise, and it's very obvious that their biases were um, did influence the levers that they pulled whilst they're in that position of power.
okay.
So as soon as you like, I guess because they weren't an elected official and they were in an institution with such great power to influence the economy, like their personal biases, they weren't held accountable for that.
So their expertise was being influenced
So
by their ideas there.
that's the message I'm hearing. That you may get there on technical expertise, but it's still politics at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, look, the
I hear that
original,
message loud and clear. Like,
the original economists, let's say, of the modern era, around the start of the Enlightenment, they described their industry as political economy. There was no separation for the founders of modern society in relation to politics and economics. It is a very postmodern idea, you could say, that you can actually separate the two. I think intellectuals, like I said, from the founding of modern society, were very much in the know that politics is economics and economics is politics. You're an expert in one and both at the same time. You can't separate the two.
I like just in preparation for this conversation today, I decided I would go on a journey with AI today, over the political and economic history of humanity, right from like pre-agricultural times, just to get an understanding of, what did these systems look like? How did they develop? What were the the environmental, political, economic influences? How do these things all fit together? So I just got up to the Middle Ages. So I haven't quite crossed the threshold into where capitalism sort of enters the picture. But the stuff that I've learned about it so far is absolutely mind blowing.
And from your exploring, is it inseparable?
Look, I can see how it was inseparable. I like my gut. I'd have to progress a bit further into the conversation, but let me give you an example of the kind of thing that like it was thrown at me today. I was asking it about separation between religion and state. Like how did these initial how did these people come into power? And it was explaining to me how the moment in time that we had food surpluses, that was the point in time that inequality got introduced. So food surplus led to inequality, and what wound up happening with the food surpluses was like these charismatic individuals managed to go around and convince people to give them a portion of their food surplus in exchange for, I can't remember what it was in exchange for, but what they would do is they would collect these portions of different food surpluses from different families and then hold these huge like lavish social feasts for the entire community, which would create this social debt. This is blowing my mind. Like when I was explaining it to me, I'm like, social debt. How is there a social debt? Well, again, put yourself in the shoes of like a farmer who gets asked by, hey, you got a bit extra? Can you spare some for us? And then gets invited to like one of these lavish feasts, which is something that they can't do by themselves. They're not like if you go to a person's house and you get a lavish feast. And you're not in a position to be able to reciprocate that, then there is some type of social debt that's associated with that. So when that person says, "Hey, we got to defend the territory. Can you send one of your sons along to help us out?" All of a sudden, there's that obligation there, and that's kind of where like power originally came from. So the idea of like it was originally egalitarian in terms of like how the power was acquired, because to put on a social feast for like the whole tribe or the whole community or something like that is a big undertaking. You need to be seen as giving more than everybody else, and then over time these people became tasked with the basically making sure that the harvests were happening on time. So these are the people that got tasked with reading the stars, working out the calendar, predicting when the rainy season is going to happen, stuff like that. So apparently that's where religion actually got introduced into the picture, because if you've got someone who's sitting there predicting when different stuff is going to happen, and they're right, then from the farmer's perspective, that looks divine. Like, how did you predict that? Like we depend on your predictions to know when to plant our seeds and stuff like that. So from their perspective, one and the same.
Sounds like they might have been experts in predicting things. A little bit technocratic, maybe.
Well,
just say it, boys.
I'm hoping to spend a bit of time on this idea of expertise and what it's going to mean for us in the new world. Because
I like the old adage, knowledge is power, and there is an extent to that. If you can wield that for, as I believe, a version of what you're saying is social currency, and you can use your social currency, and people are obligated to serve you in a way that they can within their means, and you have this ability to provide a greater service over the top of that, and that it sets you in a class differently to them. I'm not going to say above for now, but let's say differently to them. There's a division of labor there. And so if you have a majority of your population that services generally by producing the food or providing protection, and you have a smaller group of knowledgeable persons who are potentially spiritually aligned at this point, because at this stage of human history, it is basically man versus nature at that point. And if you can help master nature somehow, and that gives you the ability to make more food and have better protection from the elements, even, so you can have a more sustainable society, then your society can grow and prosper, and those people become more and more important as the division of labor gets more complex, and you're relying on more skilled people in various industries and occupations to make that larger and larger society function. Power starts to shift towards different areas, and people can make claims to have power over others, or rule over others, let's say, quote unquote.
See, I think it's the division of labor that I think is probably going to undergo the biggest change in the era that we're entering, because and I'll spend a fair bit of time sort of unpacking this throughout the podcast, because I really want to go into detail about expertise, multi-domain expertise, leadership within expertise, and how these things contribute to being able to use AI and the results that you're able to produce with AI. So, and I'll use a few examples with that as well. But if we backtrack a little bit and we go back to what Farias was saying about how there's political influence, even if the road to a leadership position includes a technocratic basis, there's still political influence at that level. To me, what that means is not only do you need to have the technical expertise, but all it does is it just introduces an additional domain of capability which you need to develop. You need to understand how to be able to function in that political arena, in addition to knowing what you're actually talking about when it comes to the knowledge of the domain that you're talking about. And I think that that's true across the board. In any given industry or domain, like there's a difference between leadership skills and technical expertise. So the best leaders are going to have a combination of both, depending on what they're actually leading.
It's probably at this point I should probably make very clear my criticism that I kind of made before about accountability and as Mr. Ree was saying, the post-modernization of politics. Like, I feel like that criticism is very much geared towards the kind of greed is good, neoliberal status quo that we kind of find ourselves in, where, you can have, leaders that are kind of in the shadows that really all they're doing is going into bat for themselves, or going into bat for, the class of people that they represent, or, their mates that just so happen to be the prime minister, or just so happens to be, the other people that's working the stock market that they went to Harvard with. Like, they're obviously going into bat for, a very narrow group of people within society, and there is no obligation to the general society. So I guess in the terms that you were using before about social debt, they have no debt to society. There is no, what can I, don't ask what your country can do for you, what you can do for your country. Like, there's no debt to society, so they kind of go into bat for themselves. If we are able to kind of bring that back, where a technocratic society, in the sense the leaders do feel like they have an obligation to society, then that's a good starting place to see whether a system like that can work. But currently, that doesn't happen.
No, I get where you're going with it, and I guess that was part of like my journey with AI today was exploring the rights and responsibilities of citizens, the concept of citizenship when it was introduced in the classical area with Greeks and Romans. So I find the topic fascinating, and I take your point around there's external influences on these things, and I could go on a tangent with it around the people that get represented, but I think, but I really want to come back to the capability thing because
Okay.
I feel like that's an important thing to unpack. In the era of AI, what we're finding now is like we now have access to systems that can give us professional level output when guided by novices. So, say for example, a novice writer comes to an AI system and says, "Hey, write me up an article about this." The AI can reliably produce like a decent looking article, which is probably miles better in quality than the novice would have been able to produce by themselves. So we understand this for writing. I won't speculate on the other domains in which it may or may not be possible. But the idea, like let's say, the analogy I'll use is say, scoring a try in rugby. Like, to get to score a try, you've got to get 100 meters to the other end of the field. Some people will be able to do it. Let's call them the professionals. And some people are just going to fall short because they don't have that professional expertise. Yeah. So, they might fall short around the 40, 50 meter line, depending on, wherever the capability development landed. What AI did was, or has been able to do in some respects is make up the rest of the way. So for a novice rider, someone who might fall down around the 30, 40 meter line, all of a sudden they plug their ideas into AI, they're able to score a try. They're able to get to the 100 meter line. Yeah. And for all intents and purposes, it looks professional. Yeah. Like it's difficult to differentiate the quality of that work from what the professionals were producing otherwise. Yeah. Here's where it gets tricky, but because the professionals who use AI or who learn how to use AI, they're not running 100 meters anymore. They're running 200 meters now. The quality of work that they're able to produce is still going to be consistently better than anything the novices can produce. Yeah. So we, as the public, as spectators, as consumers of this work, we're still accustomed to work that's the quality level of people scoring tries around 100 meters. But that bar is about to shift for us, yeah, because everybody across the board will be able to produce a higher level quality of work with the power of AI. Now, the distribution of who is going to be able to produce what, we're still going to find that that's probably going to fit into a meritocracy. Like there's still going to be inequality on the other end of that like we're not going to be able to avoid, because there are going to be differences in capability levels at the end of the day. There are going to be people who are willing to invest not only in the domain knowledge, and I'll take writing as an example, but not only do you need to learn how to use AI to get the output that you want, but when you learn the craft of writing, your ability to produce quality work or to guide the AI to the outputs that you want improves as well. So there's two domains that you have. You need to learn how to use the AI, and you need to learn how to use whatever it was that that you were trying to get better at in the first place. So sorry, I don't have any other examples outside of writing, but I know it's true across a whole bunch of domains, where we're finding experts are able to differentiate between the quality of output, between novices and experts, and what actually makes sense and what doesn't.
Yes, but does your analogy kind of lead into your whole thing about civilizational lead potential? Like, can you go more into that stuff?
Yeah. So look, to me, like the beauty of this paradigm is, we're still sitting at the 100 meter, like the people that aren't producing, the people that are consuming the work, are still sitting at the 100 meter line waiting for people to score tries. And to me, what the civilizational elite potential like really entails is, we're about to see people scoring 200 meter tries. Like the quality of work across the board is going to go up And like from where eventually we're going to get accustomed to it. Eventually we're going to expect, if you want to score a try, you got to run 200 meters. Yeah. Like we'll get accustomed to like that level of output over time. But at least in the short term, from where we're sitting, like everything is going to look awesome for a while. And when you factor in, the ability of AI to revolutionize education, when I talk about that capability development, people like that's going to get democratized across the board in a whole bunch of different domains. Then we're going to start to see, people that are able to invest wholeheartedly in their own education and continue this lifelong, learning journey, and slowly over time, not just gain mastery over one domain, but we're going to start to see a lot more sort of interdisciplinary thinkers and polymaths and people that are able to bridge different domains because they've got access to like universal education across the board. It's not that we didn't have this beforehand, but having it personalized and having AI tutor us through this and being able to build those tailored learning journeys is something that we haven't had before, and we're only going to get better at doing that. So, when you think about like the quality of work that we're going to get exposed to, it's I'm I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, I'm predicting, a cultural renaissance. It's when you think about the impact of the last cultural renaissance around the 15th century and the kinds of artworks that were produced during that period and the ideas that got introduced and how revolutionary that period was in human society. I'm of the opinion that we're headed for something very similar very shortly.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Is actually, no, don't get me wrong, the artwork is incredible, but it was the introduction of new ideas, which I believe, or rehashing of, or unearthing ideas from antiquity that have been lost to history. It is that which was most substantive about the Renaissance, was that people were emerging from a period almost of darkness, I guess you would say. There was a clamp down on intellectual rigor, and people were starting to express themselves. And in the Renaissance fashion, rather romantically, people were expressing themselves and discovering the self again and the ability for what that does for human thought. And then you have a more rational period as it develops into the Enlightenment, where people are using scientific thinking and reason to define the scope of the human intellectual endeavor. So if I can really concisely try and grasp with what you're talking about, we are sitting on the cusp of a point now with the addition of new technology, a tool, as I really like to think of AI as, not an entity unto itself yet, but a tool that assists human labor, human endeavor. We're sitting at a point now where the layperson, a novice, a beginner, has access to their own expert, an expert level of industry knowledge. And so then novices and beginners, noobs, should be able to have access to becoming or producing knowledge at an expert level, if required, able to go and back and forth with their own personalized machine. And therefore, the experts themselves should be able to push beyond what is potentially the expert limits in their field with the assistance of this new technology. And so you're going to have a general upsurge in expertise in the population. And so when you are listening to some politician talk about why they need to be clamping down on spending because it's fiscally responsible to cut services in healthcare and social welfare spending, you can use a tool like a large language model to get expertise up to the extent of what a general expert would have in that field and ask a few good probing questions and be like, hey, I can call bullshit on that because I have access to potentially an expert level in finance and economics now, and you're wrong. And so this, in the sense that you were talking about before, should help democratize expertise in certain fields for the layperson. And then beyond that, assist with experts generally in continuing their field of inquiry.
So where it gets tricky is that, like, I believe that's the future that we're headed towards, and I feel like we're almost there. One of the major like wrinkles in the situation is like AI still hallucinates, and in terms of the hallucinations that it makes, it can generate plausible answers, but if you're a novice, you're not going to be able to differentiate between what is a plausible answer and what is a factually correct answer. This is where expertise actually comes into it, because as you develop your own expertise and understanding and capability, like experts are able to point to an output of AI and be like, that's garbage, that one's on the money, that one's brand new, so but as novices sort of wading our way into this territory, it can be really difficult to look at something that looks entirely convincing, and the AI seems very confident in the way that it's framed it. And then you take it to someone who actually knows what they're talking about. They're like, this is absolute garbage. Like,
You actually have another analogy for this, don't you? Yeah, well, was there something about a race car, or I think you were talking about?
Oh, yeah, I did forget about that. Thank you for reminding me. So, I think that the best way, one of the easiest way to think about it is think of AI like a Formula One race car. Yeah. So if you put a novice in an F1 car driver's seat, they're gonna go really fast. Yeah. Like we know that much. Yeah. They may or may not do some dangerous stuff, but like they're probably not going to be breaking any records in that car. Like they're not going to be able to compete at that upper, at that elite level. Yeah. But if you put like a Formula One driver in a Formula One car, someone who has actually taken the time to develop those skills and knows the intricacies of how this works, the quality, like what they're going to be able to do with the car far outpaces what a novice is going to be able to do with the car. So I think that's just a quick and easy and dirty way of thinking about AI, but it really reinforces the need of not just relying on AI. And this is kind of what bothers me about the whole paradigm is we're still talking about automation, and like there's going to be some tasks that get automated, and it's probably going to be the more repeatable, more mundane stuff. But in terms of like that true like symbiotic potential where we're working together with AI to probe new areas and discover new knowledge, like that stuff is going to be driven by experts, and we can't diminish the value. Like people are asking if their jobs are going to get replaced, not realizing that the expertise that they've already developed is what prevents them from losing their jobs in combination with AI. Like it's like that the expertise that you've developed is what separates you from the pack. All you need to do is learn how to use the AI and combine that with what you already know in order to get the most of it and insulate yourself against any automation risk. So
Okay, you might need to explain to the audience again the idea of metacognition, but I want to throw a curveball at you, Kareem. How do you think that, a civilizational leap potential like AI has, how will that change metacognition in society?
oh, okay, tricky questions. Okay, so yeah, we told you to do more of this, didn't we? I didn't see it biting me in the ass. Sorry. Metacognition. Metacognition, in a nutshell, is thinking about thinking. Yeah. So, but when we think about what self-awareness looks like. Self-awareness is by definition an ability to be able to observe your own internal processes and sort of take a step back from it and realize it in its entirety. Now, there's overlap between metacognition and self-awareness. I'm not entirely clear on what the formal definitions are and how much overlap there is, but they're very much related concept. In terms of what AI can do for metacognition, I think let me approach it a couple of different ways.
Okay.
The first one I look at it is in terms of intelligence, our understanding of intelligence itself.
Mm-hmm.
In the process of trying to recreate artificial intelligence, we've had to become very specific on what exactly intelligence is. Like the process of like building a neural network, of coming up with the mathematical formulations that link one node in a neural network to the next node. Like these are based on our understanding of how the human mind works. That's where all this stuff came from.
Yeah.
Like the neurons that fire in our brains that link to the next neuron that are separated by synapses, like all of this stuff has a biological basis, has been mathematically represented within the neural networks that are powering these large language models. Now, is there room for more evolution? Absolutely. Like we haven't seen the last of that. But as we try and understand what capabilities AI has or these large language models have, we're starting to get clearer on what is and isn't intelligence. Now, we still got a long way to go, to be honest, because the overlap between how we look at human intelligence and how we look at artificial intelligence, they're still kind of sitting in two different camps. I don't think there's enough sort of talking between those camps at the moment. But like thinking about intelligence as a whole can be a form of I guess species level metacognition. But the other angle that I want to take on this is like in terms of my own personal journey with AI. One of the things that I've found it absolutely excels at doing is when I give it a situation and I ask it to generate reflective prompts for me, quite often it knocks it out of the ballpark. Like rarely do I look at the questions and say, yeah, that's not particularly interesting. Like out of any sort of set of questions, there'll be at least a couple noodle scratchers in there. Things that really pause and make me think, what is it that I'm trying to unpack? What am I actually taking away from this? What influence does it actually have over my life? And I think that like I haven't heard enough people talking about that, to be honest. I think that's probably an underutilized feature of AI the more context you're able to give it, the better it is at really asking you those challenging questions that really help you level up your thinking and any step in that direction, like anything that helps you reflect, like anything that forces your mind to work on that level is exercising metacognition. Is engaging in that metacognitive process to help you be able to step back from what is going on in your mind and understand what that bigger picture looks like. So
like in saying that, the AI itself, as it becomes across more and more data sets, gets access to more of an understanding from experts in cognition or neurology or whatever, as it gets access to more of those databases, will it be able to help us understand the complexity of the human mind better, and then be able to help us improve AI improving itself? Will it be able to help us develop the technology instead of like people sitting down, scratching their heads, thinking about how thinking works, but the AI starts to take over
Right?
in
Yeah.
that degree, if you know what I mean? It becomes
Yeah.
like self-compounding almost.
I'm so glad you brought this up because like this is exactly how I see it. Like at the moment, we like the biggest source of training data that we have is the internet as a whole. Yeah.
Mm,
Now
yeah.
the internet as a whole can be, I forget exactly how many bytes it is, but like it's a reasonable number. It's
Mm.
something that can be downloaded,
Yeah. Yeah.
and can be fed into like a single machine as a single source of training data. Now, at the
Mm.
moment, all these amazing capabilities that we're seeing are coming off like, I forget if it's unsupervised. I know there's unsupervised learning patterns in this, somehow, but essentially that's the main training data that is being used to develop these large language
Yes.
models. Now, the fine tuning that happens, on the back end of that initial training incorporates specialized data sets. So that's when we start to look at input-output responses, and say we want the AI to get better at doing this. Let's say we want it to get better at writing. So we show it a whole bunch of examples of what good writing looks like, and the prompts that led to that good writing.
Mm.
Yeah. So input output pairs, it learns over time. Okay, this is what they want me doing more of. I'll get better at doing that. And there's I forget how reinforcement learning plays into that, but yeah, not an expert on that. What I anticipate happening is that as we start to see, going back to that paradigm I was describing before around the value of being an expert plus knowing what you're doing with AI, resulting in super powered work, higher quality 200-meter tries, as we start to see more 200-meter tries, I believe we're going to get a data set of what 200-meter tries looks like. Yeah.
Mm.
Because that's going to be far better than anything you find on the internet.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So once we start to get a data set of that, we can, whether or not we're doing it in the first training phase or we're fine tuning on that stuff, there's still an opportunity for AI to recursively self-improve based on the additional data that we feed it. But I don't think that self-improvement happens without human assistance. So this is probably a major point of contention, is that like people think about, the technological singularity as being like the AI will just be able to improve itself. And I don't think it's that simple, because I think that the best outputs that we're going to see are going to come from a combination of human and AI capability. This is this symbiosis that I'm talking about. So the more outputs that we get to see of that symbiotic level, those are what is going to feed back into the AI and use it to improve even further, which in turn leads to more humans using better quality output. And there's a feedback loop there.
Yeah, that's why I like to use the idea that it's a tool rather than an entity on itself. Like, I think there's a little bit of mystification out there when it comes to AI and its potentiality. And yeah, if you think of it as something that can be used to assist, and especially assist experts, then you're going to start to really push the envelope of what is capable in that field.
See,
I guess.
It's like it can assist experts, it can assist novices, and it will improve everyone's output quality sort of across the board. And I think the best place to demonstrate that is have you guys heard of vibe coding? I know I asked 4IS about this earlier. Mr.
Yeah,
Have you heard of vibe coding at all?
No.
So this was a term that got coined a couple months back. I think it was around February or March. Apologies I didn't mention it to you guys sooner, because it's actually quite a big deal. You know how every time a new large language model drops, or an upgrade to an existing model drops, one of the things that it gets tasked on or it gets evaluated on is its ability to write code. Yeah. And because coders are kind of computer scientists are designing these systems, obviously they're going to train it on their own domains first. So it's going to get better at that stuff first. Now, that led some people to believe that eventually we're not going to need to learn how to code anymore. Yeah. Like there was, I think it was Jensen Huang, CEO of NVIDIA, who said, yeah, you don't need to learn how to code anymore. That job, it's in the past. Yeah. Now, what actually happened was there was a one of the more prominent figures in AI research land, a guy called Andrej Karpathy. He talked about vibe coding, which is basically where he's not actually writing the code. What he does is he goes to the AI model and he describes what he wants. Yeah, it'll generate the code, and typically on its first pass, it might have a couple bugs. It might not do it perfectly. It'll just sort of create something. And then all he does afterwards is he just says, okay, can you fix what you wrote? And it'll go back over its code and it'll start fixing it. It might fix one or two errors. And you just keep, you basically, what he described doing is going with the vibe of what it was. This guy's like professional computer scientist. Yeah. And he's just feeling his way through this thing. Like he's not, how much time he was actually spending like reading the code versus allowing the AI to guide the code. Now he later on, a couple months later, like he backtracked on this and said, yeah, I'm starting to do a bit more real coding these days because there's a limit to how far you can go with vibe coding. So vibe coding is for people like me, these amateurs who don't know how to code, who rock up with an idea and just say, can you design a calculator app for me? Or can you design a to-do list thing for me? Or can you create this game for me? I don't actually know how to code, but can you do it for me? And then it does it, and it comes back here like, I don't like it. Can you fix it? And you just keep doing that recursively until you get what you want. Now, the people that actually know how to code, like I was describing before, not only are they better at guiding the AI in terms of what to build to begin with, when it makes a mistake, they actually understand what the mistake is. And they can go back and they can fix it themselves, and they can see how the pieces fit into, the bigger picture. So, why is vibe coding important? I might is it all right if I share my screen for a little bit, actually?
Sure.
I'll show you the kind of stuff that makes sense. Might help you understand a little bit about what I'm talking about. Cool. Okay. All right. So I decided I would not that one. Yeah, I decided I'd be playing around with some physics stuff, and I was trying to understand what hyperdimensional thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
So we understand what we're able to think in 3 dimensions. Yeah. It's hard for us to think and we understand time is a 4th dimension. I'm trying to figure out there are mathematical theories that we exist in many more dimensions, like 10, 11. I've seen up to 27 with string theory. Now we can represent these dimensions mathematically. So, for example, x squared plus y squared r squared. That's a 2D circle. If we add z squared, we get a 3D sphere. Now we can take it to 4D as well, and it starts getting a bit more complex. And I didn't quite know how to represent these things. So I I asked Claude to create an interactive artifact. So what it's done is it's gone ahead and coded this entire thing. I don't know what any of this means, but it's important. So I'm watching it write this code, and I'm like, oh wow, Cyan XW plus W, like that looks mad to me, you know.
Kareem, can I just say, are you the novice or are you the kid that's in the Formula One?
I'm the kid in the
car,
candy store. Yeah, yeah.
and you're like, you're just driving off.
Yeah, like let me. Where else did I go? Yeah, hyperdimensional wave function. Okay. Have you seen the tesseract before? Tesseract is so imagine a 3D cube gets extracted into 4 dimensions. So the best way to think about this stuff is like once I can actually play with the individual parameters and see what they mean, like does that give you an idea of what the 5th dimension might look like?
Yeah, like
it shows you the level on which we're thinking if we're trying to represent a concept in multiple dimensions. And then we can take that to a 5D panoramic. Now, if I was trying to understand these concepts out of a textbook, I would fall flat on my ass.
Mm-hmm.
Like this makes absolutely zero sense. And even then, I'm not entirely sure that the AI is representing it properly.
Yeah.
Like a Calabi-Yau manifold is apparently something that happens is a dimension that is compacted so small that it takes up a specific very like it's meant to be a really elegant shape. I'm not. I mean, it kind of looks elegant, but this is just some stuff that I made that the AI came up with. So whether it's as elegant as it's supposed to be, I don't actually know. So anyway, I'll stop sharing. But you guys get the idea. Actually,
but I guess to kind of go back to your analogy of the Formula One driver, like I guess if you know how the basic rules work, and you know how the structure, the form, and all of that, then you know when to break the rules and when not to.
Exactly.
So yeah, like a novice that's kind of screeching down the racetrack, they see a corner and they just pull the wheel to the right and flip the car pretty much straight over because they don't understand about corners. Whereas, I don't know, the Formula One driver, the Peter Brock, cranks his gear shift in a way that, 9 times out of 10, if you do keep on doing that trick, it'll absolutely wreck your gearbox. But he does it this one time because he wants to keep up his speed and to get around the corner. So he knows, hey, I can't do that trick all the time, but I'll do it this time because I need to cut the corner in the right way and keep the same speed. Mm-hmm. So you're the expert, hey, I can do this trick every now and again, but I know I'm cutting a corner, or I know I'm vibe coding when really normally I should be coding, and you kind of go from there.
Just using this like sort of physics or I don't even know what to call it anymore. I'm getting confused on it, but using this example of what I was talking about, like in order for me to successfully navigate that territory, it would be really helpful for me to know how to code, because I wound up creating or trying to create some visualizations later on in this conversation that don't actually work. Like the code itself, there's something wrong with the code. The system is not understanding the way it's been constructed. So I plugged it into Gemini. Gemini gave me like a watered down version of what I was looking for. Again, if I knew how to code, if I knew what the problems were, I might be able to fix it. But domain expertise is equally as important, because if I knew more about physics or mathematics or exactly what I was looking for, I'd be able to better construct the visualization that I was after that would help me wrap my head around hyperdimensional thinking. So this is just my early forays into what that stuff looks like and the road bumps that I'm encountering. But what I think is probably and you hit the nail on the head when you talked about knowing when to break the rules, because I think that's more true in the world of art than it is anywhere else. Because when I talk about art, I talk about music, I talk about literature, I talk about visual art. So I put all of those things in the same category. Mr. E, you said earlier that the Renaissance, while there were prolific artworks and things that were created during that period, it was really the rational ideas and the Enlightenment and the scientific thinking that came out of it, which propelled us forward as a society. The way I'm looking at art these days, and this is why I'm saying that we may be able to get to like a brand new modern day Renaissance, is when you think about how the printing press necessitated the democratization of reading and of literacy in general, in order for people to be able to fully participate in society. Like, it was seen as you're not fully participating unless you've developed this capability. Now, for me, when I think about art, I'm thinking, like what is the artist actually trying to communicate? Is it a piece of knowledge? Is it an emotion? Is it a human experience? Like what is actually, behind the art? And I think that, every person, regardless of who they are, has a unique human experience, has a unique perspective to share, has a unique combination of experiences that have led them to look at something in a particular way. And as much as we love language, language can be restrictive in terms of our ability to communicate, the depth of these experiences. If you think about like your favorite song, for example, or the most emotional song you ever heard, take the music out of it and just focus on the lyrics. Does it still have the same impact? And, if the answer is no, then there is something that's being added by the music that helps us more fully appreciate what this emotion is, what this human experience is. And the way I'm looking at art these days is that, going back to that 200-meter try analogy, like everybody has something to share, but not everybody has the capability to be able to share it. Like we've got budding artists that are getting tackled on the 30-40 meter line. They're not getting anywhere near professional level, even though they've got something really important to be able to share. And what AI is doing is it's helping those people get across the 100-meter line so that we get access to what these people have to share with us. So, when you think about everybody getting not just the ability to share high quality work, but getting access to an education to help them express and communicate themselves better, then, we're still sitting at the 100-meter line. Do you know what I mean? As long as we can maintain that perspective, like eventually we're going to get all bourgeoisie and be like, no, I need a 200-meter tray here. It's just not cutting. But in the meantime, like everything is going to look awesome. So the ability of people to be able to express themselves in ways that they were not previously able to me is going to facilitate a renaissance of a different kind. So, and that's one of the biggest things that we have to look forward to, because once we understand what different people are going through, what someone who belongs at the intersection of 10 different vulnerable communities is going through, what unique experience they're having, then we're going to be able to empathize with that person. We're going to be able to build compassion, bridges between communities. This is what's going to help us understand each other and be able to come together and find ways to solve these common problems. So I think that's the civilizational leap I'm looking forward to.
So I want to kind of push the concept of the 200-meter try. So if we do end up having the ability to do the 200-meter tries, because we put AI, the tool, in the hands of the necessary experts that are able to push it to the necessary limit that leads to, your AI singularities and whatnot, what is the true potential of these sort of things? Like, I know a lot of people like to use the whole Star Trek thing of space being the final frontier, but maybe this is geared towards the bias that I have thanks to my partner. But the final frontier is not necessarily space, but there are also different frontiers. Like, another frontier that I'm sure you would agree with her, Kareem, is the human mind.
Yeah,
We know jack shit about the human mind. So, do you believe that do you believe that the civilizational leap potential is to the capability of putting AI in the right hands? Are we not only able to solve space, but more importantly, do you believe we'd be able to solve the human mind?
I'd actually love to talk to you about this. One of the things I've been working on, I might as well go into it. I already published an article about it. Didn't get any reads yet, but
link it. Give us a link. We'll put it in the description.
Let's link it in the description. Let me see if I can get some read. Part of what I've been designing is the evolution of measurement within psychological science. So, at the moment, a lot of what we rely on for quantitative analysis is these psychometric scales. So you've probably seen these a whole bunch of times. It'll give you a statement, then it'll say, rate on a scale of 1 to 5 how strongly you agree or you disagree with this stuff. I'll make the argument that that's quite reductionist in terms of capturing the nuance of an experience. And I proposed an alternative paradigm where we get AI to actually evaluate natural language responses, which I haven't been able to build a working prototype yet. But part of the hesitation around this stuff to begin with is that AI is still a black box. But if you can't track how it got from A to B in terms of its reasoning, then it's not scientifically rigorous. It's not, you can't sort of, rely on it to be reproducible or anything like that. The way I've sort of designed this new measurement framework is that we generate these sort of scoring rubrics that specifically guide the AI on what to look for in the natural language responses. So say if we're self-esteem is the construct that I use in the article, and I'll walk you through the entire process of how we take self-esteem. We adapt the questions from the original scale. We generate a construct map which explicitly tells the AI. It's like prompting the AI, read this text and then find these language markers within this text. Yeah, and it'll generate a score between 1 to 4 on, the frequency or intensity of that. From that, there's a separate module which we run statistical analysis on, and that gives us this multidimensional construct. Now, the reason why that's such a big deal is because we can apply the psychometric principles of psychological science, which is a mature measurement science. Like, we've had to deal with a whole lot of variance within psychological science for about 100 years now. So, but it's the evolution of like, we understand how to handle variance. We understand how to handle error within that context. We just haven't applied it to AI yet. So what this does is it basically means we can now quantitatively analyze qualitative data, which is a huge leap forward, like a huge leap forward in terms of the specificity of what we can actually measure. So I actually think that we can unlock the secrets of the human mind. Over and above that, the AI, like the measurement crisis in AI, like where we're trying to figure out how to assess the AI on its different capabilities that it's coming up with. Every time a new model drops, it just, they show you the benchmarks all over again. Oh, it's got an extra 20% in this. Oh, wow. It's, but most of the time it's coding tasks, it's mathematics tasks, it's legal tasks, it's some type of like examination that's actually been baked into it. So like there's a whole bunch of different ways of evaluating AI, but none of them are really relying on this on natural language responses. The moment we can move towards analyzing natural language responses, and this stuff is replicable by humans as well. Like, if you've got the scoring rubric, like, which says this is what I'm looking for in the language, you can get a human to use the same rubric and theoretically come up with the same answers. That's what makes it reproducible. That's what makes it rigorous. So, but when you apply, sorry, I know I'm going on a mad ramble here, but
no, go for it.
When you apply that thinking to AI, in the same way that we apply it to the human mind, you unlock the doors of what AI is capable of as well, because people can start to target exactly what's going on in the AI. Now, if you combine that with like another thing I'm sort of starting to dabble in is this idea of mechanistic interpretability, which is almost like neuroscience for AI. Like, when it comes to neuroscience for humans, we can't actually, like, we can image stuff, but we can't get in there and tinker with stuff to see what works and what doesn't, because it's unethical.
Those damn ethics.
Yeah, I know, right?
No, we don't want to kill people, obviously. Like, AI, different story. Get in there, knock out as much as you want, and when you knock stuff out, you can figure out, oh, well, I didn't know it did that. Like, you can start to link the patterns of, if I knock this node out, it doesn't do this as well. Map that with this other new measurement paradigm that I'm talking about, and like those two like supercharge each other. Like they feed off each other, and we start to get a much more detailed understanding of exactly what is happening in an AI mind. So that's the stuff that I've been working on in my spare time. Happy to link it. Super excited about it. If anyone wants to challenge me on it, by all means, go ahead. I'm more than open to feedback on this one. So,
yeah, no, I'll put the link in the description, especially so we can get some reads up on it as well.
If
for nothing else. But I wanna link back this entire conversation now to the idea of technocracy.
Yeah.
So what we've been speaking about a lot, I think, is how AI as a tool, if nothing else, will be able to assist our field of intellectual rigor and technical capabilities as a species, and will be able to give more people access or the ability to become experts, technical experts in a given field or multiple fields, expanding then the potential for all of us as a species to produce and like proliferate more and more value for society. Now, in a world where humans are given more potential to produce more value for everyone, whatever, however you want to define the word value, but we're able to become better and more knowledgeable in various things. Will democracy then take more of a back seat in a society where people are generally more knowledgeable if they have access? I'm not saying that everyone's going to take it up, but let's just say that people do have the ability, they have access to this technology, and people become experts in more and more things. There's more of a division of labor, but there's more understanding in various fields. Does this have a material effect on the way that society functions, and people start to compartmentalize in certain areas, and we start to, as a species, recognize, or as societies start to recognize, look, people have got access to all of this knowledge, and if there are people that have the ability just to plan an economy better because they understand economics, modern monetary theory and finance better than most, we should leave that stuff to them. And these people are really interested in science, and they have the ability to tackle that like no other, because it's not like they're limited to going to the most prestigious university and they can't afford to go there anymore. They've been doing this since they were 12 years old because they've been talking to a large language model about it for the last 15 years, and they've been developing their passion for it. Does society start to move away from a democratic system where you have politicians that get into leadership roles, maybe based on simply a popularity contest and charisma, and you have like kind of an inverse? Because at the moment what we have is, I think we have a democratic society that is supported by technocracy. So what I mean by that is we have elected officials who are usually supported by key advisors, and the key advisors are the technical experts. Now, a good politician doesn't make a policy decision without consulting their advisors, who are the technocrats. Now, what I'm suggesting is, in a world where there is potentially more people able to become technocratic, then maybe it may become more prominent, and the advisors and the politicians are either on the same playing field, or the politicians themselves take a back seat, and they really only are adjudicating on, ethical matters or sociability matters, like who gets to throw the feast and like who's socially obliged to who, because that's really something, you could argue about whether it's technocratic or not. Maybe chefs will argue with you about feasts and how technical that is, but or event organizers might argue with me that it's actually quite technical. But you know what I'm saying? Maybe politicians will be more just talking about, general politics, relations between people, and the technocratic stuff, how to run the economy, how to become more sustainable in our practices with our energy consumption, or how to, transport people around, instead of using private vehicles, more public transportation, all of these large questions that really should be looked at by technical experts as opposed to a popularity contest, which is a lot of what democratic institutions boil down to, unfortunately. As someone who's seen government very closely and personally, I know that there is actually a fine distinction between somebody making a political call because it's right for their political career, and potentially what's better from a planning and a legacy scenario, if you know what I mean. So, there's a lot of political decisions that are made because it's good for a political figure in the short term, rather than oh no, we actually have to implement this over 10 years, but the political cycle is only 4. So I foresee a world that you're describing where you have the ability or the potential for more people to get involved in technical expertise. You actually have a rise of technocracy and a shift in our understanding and our value system. Because at the moment, I think democracy is placed very high in our value system, in the sense that because we think it is fair and ethical. But at some point, maybe technocracy will actually be more fair and ethical.
Let me ask you this. What do you think is without diminishing the value of politicians' capabilities, what do you think is easier to learn? How to be a politician or technical domain expertise?
Well, they're both actually forms of expertise.
They are,
There's some very skilled politicians out there.
without diminishing the value of politicians. I
Yeah.
know there's some
Yeah.
incredibly skilled politicians out there. I totally get that. But at least, from where I sit, it feels far easier to teach a technical expert how to be a politician than it does to teach a politician technical expertise. Like you could probably give them, a foundational understanding, but the deep nuances and stuff, and it probably works both ways. You're not going to wind up with a technical expert who winds up really grasping the deep nuances of politics and different stakeholders and how to interact with them and all that. Like, I totally get that. But the world that I'm envisioning is a world in which we start to move away from specializations because we've got access to so much education and we can learn whatever the hell we want. So we will find, like, at the moment, society rewards specialization. Yeah, there's a huge emphasis, when it comes to any form of technical expertise, the people that have been doing it the longest, in general, have more of an understanding of it than the other people. But what the world that I'm picturing that we move towards is a world in which we start to recognize the value of interdisciplinary thinking, where we start to see polymaths start to take leadership roles because they have an understanding of multiple areas and are able to apply their thinking in multiple ways. So, imagine a world in which you don't spend one lifetime becoming a master of one thing. You spend a lifetime, which is now extended by modern medicine and any other biological improvements that we're able to make. So you've got a longer lifespan. We've got access to better education. We've got access to personalized AI education. You wind up with more free time on your hands, able to pursue whatever education you want. And it becomes plausible for people to gain mastery over 2 to 3 domains within their lifetime. Like in that world, it's not going to be so much about technocracy versus democracy. It's going to be, you can have your cake and eat it too. Like we're going to start to see technical experts who develop deep understandings of politics or assume those leadership roles. So, and are able to expand even further, beyond that. So I see it as an arbitrary distinction at the moment that we're making that's not going to hang around for as long as we're around. And the better we get at developing our own capabilities, the more of it we're going to want to develop, across. Am I on another island with this? Like, you tell me.
No, I don't see it that way. I see if people become more broadly experts in a variety of domains as opposed to having to dedicate their whole life to being an expert in one thing, I actually see that as a result of that, people reshaping society to move away from needing politics to organize society. And society will actually tend towards knowledgeable persons in certain fields, as opposed to. What was that?
Do you see that as preferable, or?
I'm not really making a judgment call. What I'm saying is, materially, if we start setting up societies now, like at the moment, the society that we basically have structured for ourselves in a liberal democratic sense is, I go to work, I raise a family, I have my own interests, and I delegate my certain responsibilities as a citizen to an elected representative to make calls for me on a myriad of issues, because I've got shit to do. But in a world where you're explaining where people can become broadly more across more areas because of the potentiality of the tools that they're using to expand the horizon of the areas that they understand. People will actually gravitate to areas of expertise, multiple areas of expertise, what have you, and we'll restructure society to suit that in terms of how we organize things. And we won't actually need as many representatives to make decisions for us based on them consulting with a bunch of advisors. We'll actually be able to organize societies where people go into certain industries, let's say, and they can cross-pollinate multiple industries, but it's actually those industries that start making decisions in those fields, as opposed to a politician doing everything and making policy on everything and consulting advisors. Will actually have the advisors setting the policy in their areas and relying less on a representative system, a representative political system, as a result of people being more knowledgeable. I'm not really making a judgment call on either. I think they both have merits.
I get that. Okay. Sorry, just to throw a spanner in the work. How do you feel about like geopolitical military decisions? Like, is that stuff that you want a technocracy around, or do you still want to see democratically elected representatives making the final call on those decisions?
Well, it depends at what level you're talking about, because I would actually submit to you that the military is one of the most technocratic systems we have. You have military leaders that are experts in military endeavor. It's not politicized at all. There's no democracy in that system at all. It's a hierarchical institution, and you're an official or an officer in that system because you're good at what you do.
My understanding of that system is that we're supposed to have a citizen in charge at the end of the day.
Depending on your society, yeah.
Yeah, like that's supposed to be a fundamental feature of societies. Correct me if I'm wrong. Am I on the wrong track?
No. It is. And I would say to, again, a certain degree, and this is the blend between that I was talking about before, between democracy and technocracy. Let's use the Americans as an example. They have their president who's the commander in chief. But I would say that a president would be beyond their remit if they didn't take the advice of the Central Committee or the Joint Chiefs that get together and advise the president. And so what I'm saying, in a system where people generally move to being more knowledgeable, which lends itself to a higher technocratic society, people will put less importance on having a commander-in-chief. A citizen who isn't an expert in that field and they've just won a popularity contest to get there, they'll put less value on that. And all I'm saying is, like, as we become more knowledgeable, we put less value on a popularity contest, to make it very crude, if you know what I mean.
I totally get where you're going with it, and there's a part of it that does appeal to me in terms of wanting the most knowledgeable people in charge of making these decisions. I guess there's another part of me that's kind of focused on how it's possible for, like, say with what's happening in academia at the moment, like there can be this trend towards sort of being dismissive of academic elite, because they've developed such a specialized knowledge that they're almost detached from what the experience of a regular person is. Like they're just no longer able to communicate it. So I'm picturing the role of a democratically elected representative in that paradigm as being someone who sort of connects what the knowledgeable experts are talking about with the experience of a layperson, so that we don't wind up having like completely different tracks within society or
and that is a good safeguard in the situation we have at the moment. But if we're talking again about a society where the tools that we have create polymaths, as you were talking about before, where people have a better general understanding and can be experts in more fields, then the issue that we're dealing with at the moment, where you kind of specialize in one area and one area only, and you develop your own language system in there, and like for the outsider, they have no idea what you're talking about. Like the lay person is just like, what are these people on about? Like they're completely detached from reality. But if people are generally more knowledgeable, like everyone can get to the 100-meter line, if we go back to that analogy. And like there's some people that are at the 200-meter line, fair enough. But if everyone's at the 100-meter line now, and they're like generally more capable as a result of the access to technology that they have, again, what I'm saying is we may shift there. And I would argue, and this is a theory that I work on in my own work, in my streams, in my content, is that because of, I get to say it once every podcast, because of the development of capitalism, we are at a point now where the means of production, the technologies that we have, the productive forces, so our skills and our labor, is at a point where we actually need more technical experts than we used to. We are at a point now where we need more managerial people than we used to. The managerial class is actually way more important in a 21st century style society than it was at the turn of the Industrial Revolution when they invented the steam engine. You didn't have to have people managing teams of other people. You put them on the factory floor and you had like basically the foremen walking around and like everyone just produced. But like now with the diversity of labor, the intensification of the division of labor that we have, we're actually pushing towards technocracy anyway. And there's a big argument in democratic societies right now about this idea that democratically elected people are losing power to bureaucracies, which are full of technocrats. You have all of these people in like departments and institutions and advisory boards that advise politicians and sign off on things. They have the power to sign off on things and they're making decisions and they're not even elected officials. It's not the parliament. It's not Congress that are making these decisions. It's some pencil pusher in some office somewhere who's signing off on this. That's crazy. I didn't vote for this. And like this argument is happening already. And all I'm saying is I foresee the more technical access people abilities that people develop, the more technocratic we will get, the more value we will put on this stuff. Because already people put a lot of value on an expert in a field. People will, like during the pandemic, people were listening to what the virologists were saying, what the FDA was saying, and relying on the experts to get them through the pandemic, not the elected officials. And the elected officials were kind of like, well, I don't want to touch that one. We'll just wait for the experts on this one. And when they tell us what, I'll tell you guys what to do
example,
next.
Actually, that's the absolute perfect example of what you were talking about. You know, for the most part, politicians knew to get out of the way.
Yeah, they were just like, ooh, I don't want to touch that one.
Listen to these words.
Well, that's the thing, wasn't it? Like the premiers would front the media and like pretty much straight away it's like, oh, okay, well, this is the amount of cases that we have. I'm just going to go, the chief scientist is just going to take it from here because I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's going on. I'm going to let them talk about it.
Yeah.
A completely unelected official. We have elected officials and we have unelected officials.
I feel like we were okay with that. Well, most of us were okay with that.
And this is what I'm saying, value structures. Yeah. And our value system shifts depending on what we're dealing with. And at the moment, ostensibly anyway, we highly value democracy. Like, it is fair. Like, we all get together and we decide, we vote or something like that. But like when we want to, we really fall back on a official class of persons who get their station via their credentials.
Do you know what this reminds me of? When I was going on my little journey with AI today through humanity's history, I was talking about how originally the Roman Republic was designed to be, a republic in which there were elected representatives, but I forget the conditions under which this happened, but it sort of wound up collapsing into a history of emperors and of ultimate power getting invested in one person. And at least my vague understanding of Roman history is that many of those emperors were military conquerors, were people that had military expertise and were bringing that to the table as being able to protect Rome. So,
Well, values.
it's a collapsing of the democratic structure into
but also
what
what
would
was
have been
really
at that time a technocracy.
well, yes, but also what was really important for Augustus, because obviously he saw his relative Julius Caesar immediately try and take power, and when everyone's like, "Hey, he's a tyrant," and then killed him, it was like, "No, guys, I'm very different. I'm the first citizen. I'm the first consul. That is very different from a tyrant, and I am the most capable technocrat in this situation because I am a military conqueror, but I do it for Rome. I don't do it for myself." He was
He had his politics down pat.
well, yes, he was a very effective politician, but also he was great at showing himself as what was he was the first consul, but the last citizen. Like it was something like that, where he was very good at showing, like, hey, I like obviously I have all these military conquests, but I do it for the Roman people. I do it for Roman society, and he was the one that started the lineage of the Caesars. But it was done where, like, I am the military expert that is leading all this, and I do it for the people. Which kind of feeds into your technocratic argument.
Yeah. Maybe that's what we're in store for, the modern day version.
Maybe.
I bring AI for the people.
Okay, and on that note, we'll move on to our last segment. So, what's that synthwave art? I'm sure you boys have been looking at this for this entire time. Who wants to have a guess as to what the prompt is?
It's the technocrats walking into the future.
Yeah,
they're
that's
leaving.
what I'm saying. Like,
They're leaving the world.
Towards,
They're leaving the world of ignorance
behind.
behind.
Like they're leaping towards. Like,
no, they're just walking casually.
They're just taking their time, aren't they?
Yeah, and they're leaving democracy behind. Right? There you go.
Look, you're actually pretty close. So, the prompt for this one is technocracy and the civilizational leap potential moving forward with the experts into a brave new future.
Ooh.
We're close.
Yeah.
Right? So close.
That just wraps up everything we were talking about. I love that.
But yeah, like obviously it's they've gone with the whole space theme with this one, where you can see like them obviously wearing like the suits, the space suits, but also like the weird mothership that's in the sky.
Yeah, I saw that.
I thought that was a disco ball.
Oh, like egg spaceships. So like, which came first? And with that, everyone, thank you for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe. Kareem, thank you for joining us again as a co-host.
Yes,
my pleasure, as always. Thanks for indulging me today.
Yes, we did enjoy your TED Talk today, so thank you for that.
Link in the show notes. Link in the show.
And I'll leave it to Mr. E to sign us off.
Thank you very much, 4AS, Kareem, and to all of you out there. Please remember, I am, you are, we are a mystery.